Varys never wanted a Targaryen restoration. He wanted a controlled collapse. While appearing to serve Daenerys, he was quietly poisoning her alliances and stripping away the people around her long before the bells ever rang in King's Landing. This is the story of how the most dangerous spy in Westeros became Daenerys' silent executioner, and how he got away with it for so long. The man survived 4 kings. He outlasted Aerys the Mad, Robert the Drunk, Joffrey the Sadist, and Tommen the Puppet. Not with a sword, not with an army, with information. He knew things before they happened. He shaped who lived and who died from rooms nobody knew he was in. So when Varys, the Master of Whispers, turned on Daenerys Targaryen in the final season of Game of Thrones, the show wanted you to read it as a hard moral choice. A good man drawing a line, the realm over the individual, and most people just accepted that. But if you actually go back through the show, and through the books, what you find is a completely different story. One where Varys did not suddenly turn on Daenerys in Season 8. He was working against her long before that. The decision was made quietly, in the background, probably before she ever set foot in Westeros. Everything after that was him executing a plan most people never noticed was running. So let's go through it, starting from who Varys actually was, because that part is where everyone gets it wrong. Every schemer in this story wanted something you could name. Littlefinger wanted power for himself. Cersei wanted it for her family. Tywin wanted legacy so badly he died on a toilet with a crossbow bolt in his chest, killed by the son he spent his whole life trying to control. Varys said he wanted none of that. He gave this speech multiple times about the small folk, the ordinary people who live and die while great houses play their games. He said his loyalty was to the realm, not to any king or queen. He said it so consistently, and with such obvious sincerity, that most viewers believed him. But here is what he was before all of that. Before he was the Master of Whispers, before the network, before the little birds. Varys was a mummer, a street performer, an actor. He travelled with a troupe when he was a child, performing for crowds, playing different characters for different audiences. That is where his actual skill came from, knowing what people need to hear and giving it to them. Every speech about the realm was theatre. He knew exactly which mask to wear in every room. In the books, George R.R. Martin gives you a glimpse of what Varys was actually working toward, and it has nothing to do with Daenerys. He had been secretly raising a young man he was presenting as Aegon Targaryen, Rhaegar's son, who was supposedly killed as a baby during the sack of King's Landing by Gregor Clegane. This young man, known to fans as Young Griff, shows up at the end of A Dance with Dragons with the Golden Company behind him, ready to invade Westeros, and at the very end of that same book, Varys personally murders Kevan Lannister, Lord Regent, the man who was actually starting to stabilise things after Cersei's disasters, specifically because Kevan was doing too good a job. Too much stability meant no opening for his candidate. That is not a man who wants peace. That is a man who wants a particular kind of power installed through the chaos he engineers. Quaithe, the Shadowbinder from Ashai, actually warned Daenerys about this in A Dance with Dragons. She told her, "Beware the perfumed seneschal." A seneschal is a court administrator, someone who manages things behind the throne, and no character in those books is described as wearing heavy perfume more consistently than Varys. That warning was sitting in the text years before any of this played out. Daenerys was told. She did not listen. Now let's talk about Jorah Mormont, because this is where the long game actually starts, and almost nobody connects it back to Varys. Before Daenerys had her dragons, before she crossed the Narrow Sea, Jorah Mormont was working as a spy. He had fled Westeros after Eddard Stark caught him selling poachers into slavery. The punishment for that was death. His only way back was a royal pardon, and the only way to earn one was to make himself useful to the crown. So he entered the service of Viserys Targaryen and started feeding information about the Targaryen exiles back to King's Landing, to Varys, who was Robert Baratheon's Master of Whispers. Robert wanted to know if the Targaryens were building toward an invasion. Varys ran Jorah as the source, and for a while it worked exactly as designed, until Jorah reported that Daenerys was pregnant with Khal Drogo's child. That report is what prompted Robert to send an assassin to Vaes Dothrak with a cask of poisoned wine meant to kill her. Jorah was the one who figured out what was happening and stopped it. He saved her life. And after that, his loyalties shifted completely. He stopped sending reports. He chose her over the pardon. He watched her walk into Drogo's funeral pyre and come out with 3 dragons, and from that moment he was hers, completely and permanently. He never told her any of this. Daenerys did not find out until Season 4, years after meeting Jorah, deep into her rule over Meereen. The way it came out matters. Tywin Lannister, looking for ways to weaken her, arranged for a copy of Jorah's royal pardon, the document that proved he had been reporting her movements to Varys, to be anonymously delivered to Sir Barristan Selmy. Barristan confronted Jorah about it privately, then brought it to Daenerys. She called Jorah into the throne room, asked him directly whether he had told them she was carrying Drogo's child, and when he confirmed it, she banished him on the spot. When he reached toward her face, she physically recoiled. So think about what Varys built here, from start to finish. He placed Jorah in Daenerys' circle as a spy in the first place. Then years later, the intelligence from that placement was used as a weapon to blow that relationship apart at its most personal level, not just removing an advisor, but making Daenerys realize that someone who had been with her from day one, someone she had trusted completely, had been hiding something that nearly got her killed. The man who recruited Jorah and the man whose intelligence apparatus exposed him are the same man. And the damage was not just losing Jorah, it was what that revelation does to a person's ability to trust. From season 4 onward, there is always a shadow over every person close to Daenerys. Every friend, every advisor, every protector, any of them could be hiding something. Varys built that shadow. Jorah spent the next several seasons paying for it. He went to Essos chasing Tyrion, contracted a deadly disease called grayscale, while saving Tyrion from stone men in the ruins of Valyria, got cured by Sam Tarly at the Citadel in Season 7, came back to Daenerys at Dragonstone and died at the Battle of Winterfell in Season 8, protecting her from the dead, in her arms, exactly where she needed someone to be. The most loyal person in her life, for the longest time, was someone Varys had poisoned from the beginning. Now here is a piece of the timeline most people miss entirely. During Season 5, when the Sons of the Harpy were at their worst, killing unsullied in the streets one by one, murdering Ser Barristan Selmy, nearly killing Grey Worm, causing chaos at the Great Pit of Daznak that forced Daenerys to flee on Drogon. Varys was not even in Meereen. He had already left for Westeros to build alliances, but Varys had a spy network he specifically described as birds who sing in the east as well as the west. When he showed up in Meereen in Season 6, right after Daenerys flew away, he walked up to Tyrion out of nowhere and calmly told him he already knew that Tyrion had arrived in the city and earned Daenerys' favour. His network had been watching. Now we move to Westeros, and this is where it becomes very hard to explain away. Daenerys arrives at Dragonstone with genuine strength. 3 dragons, the Dothraki Horde, the Unsullied Army, the Iron Fleet of Yara and Theon Greyjoy, an alliance with House Tyrell, and support from Dorne. She has real numbers and real reach. On paper, this war should not last long, and then, in a matter of episodes, almost everything collapses. Euron Greyjoy ambushes Yara's fleet at sea. He captures Yara, kills the Sand Snakes and delivers Elaria Sand to Cersei as a gift. Then, the Unsullied take Casterly Rock, only to find the Lannister army was already gone. Cersei had pulled them out before the attack. Jaime marched on Highgarden instead and took down House Tyrell in an afternoon. Olenna Tyrell drank poison and died, telling Jaime she was the one who killed Joffrey. In roughly 3 episodes, Daenerys loses her Dornish allies, her Greyjoy fleet, and the Tyrells. 3 of her 4 major Westerosi alliances gone, just like that. Varys was the intelligence chief. He was the one responsible for knowing where armies were moving, where fleets were sailing, what Cersei was planning. These are not obscure secrets. These are the movements of a major army in a country where Varys had spent years building a network. He either did not know, which would be a catastrophic failure for the greatest spy master in the world, or he knew and said nothing. The show tries to frame it as Cersei outplaying everyone. But every single bad call Daenerys made in those early episodes was made on bad or missing information. The kind of information Varys was supposed to be providing. Conleth Hill, the actor who played Varys, was not quiet about his frustrations. He acknowledged that by the final seasons, Varys was no longer the all-knowing character he had been, and that the writing had not done right by the character, which is fair. But even accounting for the show's writing problems, the pattern of Varys' failures all lands in the same place. Daenerys goes in blind, takes massive losses, looks desperate and dangerous, and Varys is nowhere when it matters. In Season 8, Episode 4, Tyrion finds out the truth about Jon Snow, that he is actually Aegon Targaryen, the true-born son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, which makes him the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne, with a stronger claim than Daenerys. Tyrion tells Varys, and you can watch the conversation that follows and see Varys has already made his decision. He is not conflicted. He is not weighing options. He tells Tyrion plainly, between Jon and Daenerys, Jon is the better choice. When Tyrion argues that Daenerys could help temper Jon's less decisive instincts, Varys shuts that down immediately. She's too strong for him. She'd bend him to her will, as she already has. He's not saying this as a compliment. He's saying a ruler who cannot be guided, who dominates even Jon Snow's natural resistance, is not a ruler he can work with. He is done. Tyrion asks him to stay loyal. Varys says he hopes to deserve his fate either way. He is already gone. Then, at the start of episode 5, The Bells, we see Varys in the early hours of the morning writing letters. The partial text visible on screen reads, "Not the only Targaryen left. Rhaegar and Lyanna. Their son lives still, hidden by Eddard Stark. He is the true heir to the Iron Throne. He is sending Jon's real identity to the Lords of Westeros. Active treason, with ravens, before the battle, before she has done anything irreversible. And then, this is the detail that genuinely gets missed, one of his little birds, a young girl named Martha, reports to him that she has been trying to deliver food to Daenerys, but Daenerys' soldiers have become suspicious, and Daenerys is not eating. Varys' response, "We'll try again at supper." He's not worried about her nutrition. He's trying to poison the queen. Let that sit for a second. The man who spent years giving speeches about not wanting to be the kind of person who serves tyrants, about caring for the ordinary people of Westeros, about the cost of power and the weight of loyalty, he is having a child deliver poisoned food to a woman's chambers. That is not a man acting from principle. That is a man finishing a job. And here is the other thing from that scene that barely got discussed. When Tyrion finally tells Daenerys what Varys is doing, she does not look shocked. She says she has already known. She was waiting for confirmation before acting. Daenerys figured it out herself, probably from the food she was refusing to eat. She was already watching Martha. She already suspected. She was ahead of Varys at the end, and Varys was operating so openly that a grieving, isolated queen under enormous pressure still saw him coming. When Varys was brought to the beach at Dragonstone to be executed, he was calm. Not performing calm, actually calm. He had already taken off his rings. He said to Tyrion, "I hope I deserve this. Truly I do. I hope I'm wrong." He was not trying to talk his way out. He was not calling in favours or stalling for time. He walked to his death without resistance. That is not what a man looks like when he got caught. That is what a man looks like when the move landed. He stood on that beach and took the fire because dying as the advisor who raised concerns and was burned for it told a specific story. Every lord of Westeros who received his letters about Jon's claim now had proof, not rumour proof, that this queen executes the people closest to her when they disagree. His death was the closing statement in the case he was building. The queen, who burned her own master of whispers, confirmed everything he had written in those letters. The spider used his own death the same way he used everything else, as one final move. The show never gave you this version of Varys because it stripped out the most important part of his story. The spider was not the greatest spy in Westeros because he was smart. Plenty of people in this story are smart. He was the greatest spy because he made you believe he was on your side. He made Daenerys believe it. He made Tyrion believe it for years. He made the audience believe it through 7.5 seasons. And by the time you saw what he actually was, he was already dead. His rings were already off. The letters were already sent. That is how good he was at the job. If you watched all of that and you're still on Varys' side, honestly, fair enough. Drop a comment, because this is genuinely one of the most contested characters in the show, and I want to know where people land. Was he a real servant of the realm who made the hardest calls? Or was he always running a game that had nothing to do with the people he claimed to be protecting? And if you want more of this, the overlooked details, the threads that connect across seasons, the things the show either hid or forgot, subscribe. There is a lot more of this story left to dig through.